peak, and walk away knowing that it all shall be well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I want to remind us, let's go through the group rules that we would have agreed to on that very first week, where you keep your mics off unless you have something to share or to say. We also agreed on the principle of confidentiality. That is what we share with each other here, especially all of the personal anecdotes, will stay here with you, all right? Jesse will be monitoring the chat as well as the participants. So we also want to ensure that we have an environment of respect, and understand that we will be faced with new information that may challenge some of us, information that we either will agree with or we will not agree with. And one of the things when we are faced with that type of information, we have to, of course, my cousin was saying yesterday, to test the spirits, we have to, of course, cross-check everything with the Word of God. And so we want to pick up from last week. We just want to do a quick check-in before we pick up our homework. And so first I want to start, I hope everyone has pen and paper or pencil and paper with them today. We're going to do a self-esteem checkup. Now today's session is going to be a little different. The teaching will be done through activities and through discussion. And a lot of these activities are activities that you can do with your mentees, or even if you are a teacher or in the small group setting. So I want you to pay attention, take notes. We will be also sharing the slides with you, although the information is not really like that. You're going to learn as we work together. So by now, I hope everyone has a paper and a pencil with them. So when we talk about self-esteem, it is the belief that one is naturally worthy. We all have special qualities about us, unique things that that differentiate us from others, and also qualities that remind us about our value or our worth. So I'm going to call out a number of statements on the numbers 1 to 10, right? And I want you to rate yourself on that scale. So 0 means I do not feel this way at all. I don't feel like that. I can't relate to it at all. And 10 would mean I absolutely feel this way. So I repeat again. If you don't feel this way at all, you put in any number between 0. 0 would mean I don't feel this way at all. And 10 would mean I absolutely feel this way. So you're going to rate where you fall in terms of your self-esteem on this scale of 1 to 10. So the first statement, number 1. Now, when you do this activity, you don't have to share it with other persons. This is for your personal noting. We will come back to it at some point during the day, but you don't have to share what the results are. But it's also a nice way for you to, when you're meeting with your mentee, to kick off that session to get an understanding of where he or she may be at, where their headspace is, all right? So let's listen together. Number 1, I am a worthwhile person. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 0 meaning I do not feel this way at all, meaning I do not feel like I am a worthwhile person. And 10 meaning I absolutely feel this way. So the first question is, I am a worthwhile person. The second question, the second statement, is I am as valuable a person as anyone else. I am as valuable a person as anyone else. All right. So for those of you who are coming in, we're doing a self-esteem checkup. So you're going to write down rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 based on the statement. When I look into my eyes in the mirror, I have a pleasant feeling. When I look into my eyes in the mirror, I have a pleasant feeling. Number 4, and you will get this handout in the Google Drive as well, so you don't have to write out the entire statement. Number 4, I am happy to be me. 5, I can laugh at myself. 6, I like myself even when others reject me. 7, I love and support myself regardless of what happens. 'I love and support myself regardless of what happens. 8, I am generally satisfied with the way I am developing as a person. I'll repeat that. I am generally satisfied with the way I am developing as a person. 9, I respect myself. 10, I'd rather be someone else than me. So now I want you to think of a special quality or strength that you have. So for example, a special strength or quality that I have is that I am very creative. Meaning that I have the ability to think on my feet and come up with humorous or even theatrical solutions on the spot. That's a special quality that I have. I'm also very daring. You know, I'm to an extent, I think I'm very adventurous. At least my husband would say I'm way more adventurous than him. But it's a special quality that about me. So Jessie, do you have an example of a special quality that you have?
I'm compassionate.
Compassionate?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there a special quality about me that you can identify that I haven't shared before?
She's a very compassionate person too.
Okay.
That was the first thing I noticed about her.
All right. And it's interesting because I always said when we first started coaching that I felt that he had the kindest eyes I had seen. So he generally exudes this kindness. But besides that, because that's very similar to compassion, one of the qualities that I admire about you is that you're very practical in the way that you love people. So those are qualities. So now I want for you all to write a quality that you find that you have or that you like about yourself. Or it could be one of your strengths. It doesn't have to be an emotional quality, but it could definitely be one of your strengths. So just take a minute and think about who you are. This should be easy because it's connected to the homework we did last week. So I want you to write down a special quality or strength that you have. All right, so let's talk about this now a little bit. So, why do you think it's important to recognize special qualities in yourself? Anyone can take the mic. We are having an open forum now. If your mic isn't working, you can feel free to chat, but we definitely want you to take the mic and share. Why do you think it's important for us to recognize qualities in ourselves or special qualities that we may have?
Well, everyone, hi, good evening. Everyone isn't created the same. So I think you can't compare yourself with other people. We all created differently with different traits and different qualities and stuff like that. So we have different things that would stand out. And somebody could build on that point and continue.
Okay, you didn't exactly answer the question, or why is it important for you to recognize those qualities in yourself? You jumped ahead and answered the other question that I had.
Oh, well, that could be one of my qualities, thinking ahead and thinking down the road.
Definitely is a good quality to have, yeah. So why is it important for you to recognize that quality in yourself?
Right, so that I could know who I am, I would say.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share? Roxanne, I see your mic is on. Do you want to share? Why do you think it's important to recognize special qualities in yourself?
Good afternoon. I just joined, so I forgot to turn off my mic. But why is it important to recognize special qualities
in yourself?
So that you could have a good self-image, to build on your confidence, and how you see yourself is very important to how others would see you. So I think it's important to have a good self-image and a self-love and a self-awareness.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing. So now
I have someone in the chat. Their name is User.
Okay, so we'd want for User to try to change your name so that we can respectfully call you by your name.
Right. The individual said it is great to know your strengths and to know what you can add to work or groups you may enter.
That's excellent. So it's connected to what they both were saying, this idea of self-awareness and knowing what you bring to the table. A question that often, when we come to relationships, it always is controversial, what you bring to the table. Now, I know most of you here are affiliated with a church organization or a religious organization of some kind. And one of the things we find is because we stress so much the importance of humility, sometimes persons find it boastful to recognize special qualities in themselves. So I want to get your opinion on your feedback. Do you think it's boastful to recognize your own qualities or special values?
I don't think so.
Don't think so? Why not?
As God has given you these abilities, and if He has given you these abilities, you know that you have them so that you can help others.
Okay.
And so it should not be boastful.
Okay.
That is not being boastful if God has given it to you.
Okay.
And some people think that way, that some people think that because you talk about it, you're too boastful, but God gave it to you for a purpose.
All right. So why do you think then, we've talked about ourselves, why do you think it would be important to recognize the special qualities or values in others? Anyone can share. I think today I will be calling on other persons' names. Persons I haven't heard from. Let me hear from.
Hi, good night.
Go ahead, good night.
Hi, my name is Lois. It's good to recognize the value in others, especially if we have to work together. It's always good to know the strengths that we have in a group or the abilities that we have. If we need help, we can call on the right people if we know, the strengths and abilities of others. And I think based on your last question, I think that's probably reasons, one of the reasons why, well, I know personally, you don't look at yourself because it's not something that is spoken of or mentioned. Sometimes people may even see your quality better, but it's not spoken of or mentioned. So even as, growing up in the church, sometimes you don't even realize, what you're good at or what you're not good at. You just serve and do what we have to do without really paying attention, to what I'm good at or not. But it's always good to recognize others so that we can know the strengths and who we're working with and who we could call on for what reason, who have this ability or that ability. And I guess the same thing applies to us so that we would know what we can do or what we have to outsource, what we can't do.
Definitely, yes. I agree with you. Go ahead, we have some more comments from the chat.
Selena Peters says, no, it is not boastful. Self-love is good love.
Okay.
Right? I just want to weigh in my 2 cents really quickly. I remember some time ago, Rosie and I were having a discussion and we were talking about presence on social media, right? And I was telling her that some of the breakthroughs that I had received, that I have gotten in terms of where it comes to work or speaking or doing whatever that would have earned some kind of income were because I put myself out there on social media. Because I put up on social media the things that I've done, that I've achieved. And it's not that to say that I was showing off, but it's a matter of like fish when you're wide and you pull in whatever you catch, something like that. Yeah.
All right. So thank you for your different perspectives. And really, it comes down to us understanding our own value, our own worth. That's what we were saying from the beginning. When we talk about self-esteem, it's this belief that you are worthy, that you have value, and you have something unique to you that should be honored. And this is definitely the place where we want to kick off today's session on. Because as we talk about gender, we talk about the differences and we get into some of the definitions, we'll see how so much of gender-based violence and even gender-based discrimination is rooted in this idea of either how we value ourselves, because how we value ourselves is going to mean the difference between me standing up for myself or between me sitting back, crouching down and saying, I deserve this treatment. And how we value others is also definitely connected to how we respond to them, how we treat them, and how we even stand up for them or leave them to fend for themselves. So last week you were supposed to do some homework. We want to tackle that right now. One of the assignments you were to do was to identify what is your concept of the ideal man and the ideal woman. The ideal man and the ideal woman. You were also required to understand who we are, and the idea that we were taught is that if we don't know who we are, how can we teach others to identify themselves? Because we talked about in working with young people, one of the key issues that they have to resolve is this concept of identity. If you don't know who you are, and if you also cannot identify what you're striving towards, this ideal concept, how are you going to help others get to that place? So let me hear some of the responses that you would have done, because I know everyone in this group are wonderful. Your RI teachers, your parents, your counselors, yourself. So we know we're not slackers when it comes to homework, right? So I know everybody did the homework. So let me hear from you. What are some of your, when you hear ideal man or ideal woman, what are some of the things that you look for? Feel free to take the mic or type a characteristic in the comment box.
Somebody says confidence.
That is for the ideal man or the ideal woman? I see confidence, but you need to indicate for the man. All right, so let's start with the ideal man. So Lois, you're saying confidence is for the ideal man? I'm just gonna write it down one time so we'll take note so nobody will.
Yeah, for the ideal man.
All right, confidence is one characteristic. What other characteristic you think the ideal man would have? I find all you're very quiet. You're not accustomed talking about these things.
Lori says well-rounded.
I see Sister Allison like you're burning to share. Yes.
Well-rounded as in physical size rounded, or rounded as in.
Okay. Yeah. So Dolores, you need to. Oh, Sister Pat, yeah, you need to give us some more things. All right, go ahead, Sister Allison. The floor is yours.
My concept of a Christian perspective, that the ideal man is a man who loves the Lord, is God with all his heart, soul, and mind. All of the other things will fall into place if the man loves the Lord with his whole heart, soul, and mind. So we will have dependability, we will have integrity, all of those things would follow. And that he will be the leader, spiritual leader of the home.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Someone in the comment did say integrity. Someone did say dependable.
Okay.
Someone says well-spoken.
All right. Let me add that too.
Have a great sense of self.
Okay. All right. So far, notice nobody talking about looks, but all right. Ideal man. In your, what is your picture of an ideal man? Eh? We're not asking about what other people is for you. And the men, it's okay for the men to chime in as well. Eh? What is your
visionary? Somebody says visionary.
Of an ideal man. Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Okay.
Someone has the mic? Yes, I was going. Good evening, everyone. Delori here. The well-rounded man, I believe, is one that has basically most of these qualities. Someone who is balanced, someone who is flexible, someone who has a great understanding of himself and can apply that to understanding others and working well with others.
Okay.
So that person would have basically these qualities that the other ladies mentioned.
Okay, all right, great. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else would like to add anything else for the ideal man?
Hardworking, compassionate, and humble man.
Okay. Compassionate and humble. All right, so I think we have enough there. Let me just copy the slide quickly because we're going to do a quick comparison. So that is the ideal man. So,
Yes, sir.
all right.
More coming. Caring. This is my Ideal man, caring,
Mhm.
great provider, and communicate well.
Caring. Right, we have well spoken, so I'll put communicate well.
What's happening here? I don't understand what's going on here, you know.
Right, somebody's mic is on.
Okay.
I think Karen, that's you. Right, what we're doing right now is everyone is sharing what is their characteristics they expect in the ideal man. Right, so since your mic is on, Karen, let me hear if you have any other characteristic that you think the ideal man should have. Or you think we covered everything here? Great provider, caring, great provider, communicate well. All right. Okay, great. So let's move over to the ideal woman. Your concept of the ideal woman. What do you think are some of the characteristics that she should have?
So in the chat, I have beautiful, smart, athletic, supportive, sense of humor, love the Lord, talented, patient, ladylike in the street.
Wait, hold on. Love the Lord, talented,
patient,
ladylike
in the street,
and a freak in the
freak
sheets.
in the sheets.
Okay.
In the sheets. All this is from one gentleman.
All right, lady in the streets, freak in the sheets. All right. Thank you. Come on, computer. All right.
Last one for ideal man, loves his family.
Okay. Did any of the men give any characteristics for the ideal man, by the way?
Not that I see here.
All right. So lady in the streets, freak in the sheets. Anybody else? Ideal woman. Oh, this is for ideal woman?
No, all this is mine.
All right. Anybody else would like to share anything else they think the ideal woman should be? Characteristics.
Conscientious.
Okay, when you say conscientious, what do you mean by that? Let me just make sure everybody on the same page. I put you on the spot. I'm sorry. All right. That wasn't conscientious of me. Okay, I'm sorry. Good. Well, I guess I understand what you're saying. All right. So considerate, I will put as well. Considerate of others.
Allison Industrial, is this for the ideal woman?
I think so.
So she must be able to make ends meet and have all the things that require her to bring the package financially, physically, and as a mother. So Industrious is all rounded. Okay. Making ends meet and making what she have to do.
Someone has weak and quiet spirit.
All right. Quiet spirit. All right. Anything else you'd like to add? There's still space in either one if you want to add stuff.
I saw that in terms of the married woman, need to understand the difference between supportive and submissive.
So that's only for the married woman. Single women don't have to understand that?
It need to, but particularly.
Okay.
But there's a challenge in understanding. The scripture speaks about the woman supposed to submit to her husband. And in our modern day, there's a kind of confusion what that means to submit and support.
So you think the ideal married woman in this case should be supportive and submissive?
Yes, and you have to understand in submissive what submissive means.
Okay. All right, and okay, so I'll just put that. I'll put an asterisk here so that we understand that means you must know what it means. Yes, go ahead.
Someone says a homemaker. Strong yet controlled.
Okay.
And humble, can control her tongue.
Okay.
Someone says helpmate if married.
Ideal woman is a helpmate. Helpmate, I think.
Yeah, helpmate if married.
All right. Anybody else would like to add anything else to either the ideal man or the ideal woman? No. All right. So let's look at the characteristics that we have listed here. And these characteristics are what we are saying that the ideal woman should have these characteristics. And the ideal man should have these characteristics, right? So what I want you to take a good look at these characteristics. And now, so we identified that this is me, these are my thoughts. So now I want you all to take a minute, close your eyes if you have to, and think back to last week, to last night. I want you to think back to the last thing you would have read, the last thing you would have seen on TV, the last song or so you would have heard on the radio, the comments you would have heard while traveling or walking by. And now I want us to identify in our community, what do we see as the ideal man? What is the idea? Or what does the music, the television, your children, your friend circle, what are some of the things that they value in a man? Should I put silence there? Is that what we say?
They value and he has money.
Okay. Money. Anything else? What else? Money is on the top on the list.
What he can bring to the table.
All right. What else?
Somebody says wealth, achievements, popularity.
Sunday.
Somebody says a good looking body.
Okay. Okay. Anything else we want to add to the list?
What about aggression?
Aggression.
Must be aggressive.
Okay.
Well, somebody says well dressed.
Okay.
Can speak well. M-O-G. I'm not sure.
Man of God.
Okay.
Man of God. Man of God.
Yes.
Someone says confidence.
Let me put it properly. Man of God. No. Confidence.
Good role model.
Okay. All right, so we're moving ahead because of time. What do you think, when you look at your community, when we hear the messages, what our young people are talking about, conversations even, what are the characteristics that you believe are valued in a woman?
Body.
Right, we have one. The body, but everybody has a body, is it? Or it's just the body? Okay. Yeah. What else? Right, my daughter is seeing her here. Anything else anyone else would like to add? What is valued, or what, when we hear persons talking about their ideal woman, what are some of the things you hear them talking about? Or
well dressed. Someone says well dressed and quiet. Attractive face.
Attractive.
Yeah, looks
pretty. Our body is well shaped. Okay.
Yeah.
So
must be sexy, confident, smart, intelligent.
And intelligent. Anything else? Anything else? That's it. Those are all the characteristics for women in 2020.
Must be a good cook.
Okay, all right. Good cook. All right. Anything else? Let me just hear one more, and then we're gonna move ahead.
High class job.
Okay, I don't know what that means. You care to elaborate when you say high class job?
Can afford to take care of herself.
Okay.
Someone says a good sport, another says a good mother.
Good sport, good mother. All right. So we'll come back to these just now. I want to ask you the question. Is there any difference between the meaning of the word sex and the word gender? Is there any difference that you could identify between the meaning of the word sex and the word gender? If you think that there's a difference, somebody said.
Skip it across.
Okay. Kitty's on the mic. All right. So, would anyone like to hazard a definition or explain if there's a difference? That's a yes or no question. Is there a difference? Y'all are awfully quiet tonight. Maybe I should unmute everyone. Maybe that would be too much noise. All right, so based on what we think, what you know, do you think that there's a difference between sex and gender? I will wait. Anything in the chat?
Someone says yes.
Yes, there's a difference. Thank you very much. Yes and no.
Someone says yes and no.
So yeah, we're having two different opinions. All right, so let's go to the definitions. When we're talking about sex, we are referring to the biological differences between males and females. Sex differences are concerned with the physiology of males and females and generally remain constant across cultures and over time. Sex tells us about the differences between males and females in their bodies. So when we're talking about sex, we're talking about hormones, we're talking about genes, right? We're talking about the chemical, biological makeup of persons. They remain constant over time. Now, in 2021, you'll notice that we focus on that genetic level of sex because we know persons are engaging in medical, what's it determined when they do medical procedures to change their gender. But even though you would like, you can change your gender, for some persons try to change their gender, your sex generally remains constant. You cannot, even if you cut off, stick on, sew in, glue on, whatever changes that you add to your body, you cannot change ultimately the way you were born, the chromosomal level, right? So when we're talking about those biological differences, we are speaking about sex. Now, gender is different from sex in that it speaks more to the differences in the way that men and boys and women and girls are expected to behave. So we're talking about their dress, the type of work that they do, the way they speak, and their status in society. These differences are created by our culture, and not nature. And we can change them, right? Remember we said one of the major differences, sex is biological, gender, you're thinking more cultural. So when we say like the way they dress, so for example, in some cultures, it is appropriate for women to wear grass skirts. In another culture, the men will wear grass skirts. Those are gender-related things. We're talking about the roles, the way that we expect persons to behave, the type of jobs that they do. So for example, if we say all boys should be construction workers, that would be something really not necessarily. We're referring to the biological differences. So I want you to take back out your paper and pencil if you have, and I'm going to read some statements and I want to see if you get it correct. So the statements I will read will either be a statement about sex or it will be a statement about gender. If it's a statement about sex, you write a S. If it's a statement about gender, you just write a G. All right, everybody's clear on what we're doing?
Yes.
All right, great. And we'll discuss it after. So the first statement, women give birth to babies, men don't. Women give birth to babies, men don't. Is that an issue related to sex or is it gender? All right, so let's discuss. Anyone would like to take the mic and share what they put? Any brave person? Or in the chat even?
Hi, good night. I had 6. For the reason that, I mean, even though I teach my son that he could have a child, it's not possible biologically in my mind. So I put 6 because of the biological makeup of the child, excluding all the factors of who the child think they are, whether male or female. I just put 6.
Okay, sex is correct. The statement refers to biological differences. Women give birth to babies, men don't. Because we're talking about biological makeup, right? We're not talking about roles, behavior, things, expectations, etc. All right, next statement. Let's see how you'll do. So for this one, instead of writing it in your book, if it is a sex statement, I want you to react with a thumbs up. And if it is a gender statement, react with a heart. So if it is a sex statement, thumbs up. If it is a gender statement, heart. All right. So the statement is, little girls are gentle, boys are tough. Little girls are gentle, boys are tough. If it is a sex statement, thumbs up. If it is a gender statement, heart. Sex statement, thumbs up. Gender statement, heart. Little girls are gentle, boys are tough. I'm seeing people reacting and stopping reacting after a while. So far, I've seen like about 4 or 5 persons respond. All right, so persons are putting it in the chat as well. Great, seeing something. All right. So that statement is a gender statement. So it should have been hearts, because we're talking again about expectations, the way people should behave, what they should do, etc. It has nothing to do with biology. Next statement. Women can breastfeed babies, men can bottle feed babies. Gender or sex? Thumbs up for sex, heart for gender. Women can breastfeed babies, men can bottle feed babies. All right, I'm seeing the thumbs up going. All right. Okay, women can breastfeed babies, men can bottle feed babies. That is a sex statement. We're talking about the biological makeup and the biological differences. It was kind of tricky because they're talking about men bottle feeding babies. Is kind of hinting to some gender related issues, you know, whether men should be involved in child rearing. But ultimately, we're talking about biological differences and makeup. All right. Most construction workers in the Caribbean are men. Most construction workers in the Caribbean are men. Is that a sex statement? Thumbs up. Or a gender statement? Heart. Right, so I'm seeing the persons who are reacting. It is a gender statement, correct? Because is it true for everybody? No. Right, that has to do with the expectations of. All right. Next statement. Men's voices break at puberty, women's do not. Men's voices break at puberty, women's do not. Sex statement, thumbs up. Gender statement, heart. All right. I hope you all know how to do, go to reactions. If you're on a laptop, you click more and you should be able to see the reactions pop up. All right. Because we're talking biology. Yeah. Next statement. Girls need to find a good husband. Boys need to find a good job. Is that a sex statement or a gender statement? If it's a sex statement, thumbs up. Gender, heart. All right, I'm seeing responses coming up quickly. All right, so far, the persons who are responding are correct. It is a gender statement because it has nothing to do.
Excuse 1 minute, you could just repeat it. I missed that one.
Sure, girls need to find a good husband. Boys need to find a good job. And we're saying that that is a gender statement. It has nothing to do with sex. And we lay the foundation and we're building and building. What about this one? Girls experience menstruation once they reach the age of puberty. Sex or gender? Girls experience menstruation once they reach the age of puberty. Excellent. Yes, that is a sex statement. This one now, let me see if y'all get this one. Girls are more emotional than boys. Is that a sex statement or a gender statement? If it's a sex statement, thumbs up. If it's a gender statement, heart. Girls are more emotional than boys. All right, so we're seeing we at our odds here. Persons are flip-flopping unsure. I'm seeing some gender, some heart. It's all right, there's a safe space. It have no, you're not getting graded, it's not test, right? So what do you think? Anybody would like to hazard a guess at the answer for this one? Let me see if there's anything in the chat. We're seeing some, I'm not sure if this is related to this question. All right, so the statement was girls are more emotional than boys. And that is a gender statement. It's a gender statement because it has nothing to do with biology, rather our cultural expectations. Everybody has emotions. Everybody was given emotions except for one or two who have some biological difficulties and hormonal issues. But for the most part, we all were given emotions. Gender comes into play when we tell our boys especially to express emotions only in certain ways, or that only certain emotions should be expressed, or is appropriate for a man to express these emotions, right? So it's a gender statement. And this is the last one. In most of the world, women do more housework than men. Is that a sex statement or a gender statement? In most of the world, women do more housework than men. All right. So, for those of you who would have identified, I know some of these questions were kind of tricky. The answer for this last one is that it's also a gender statement. Because again, we're talking about the expectations of what they should do, the type of work that they should do, how they should behave, as opposed to a biological difference. Remember, when we hear sex, you're thinking chromosomes, you're thinking, well, a few years back you're thinking penis, vagina, the major differences. Now we have to take it at the chromosomal level. But when we're talking about gender, we're introducing the idea of roles, expectations, how you appear and what you are expected to do, not predisposition, what you're expected to do in society. All right? So I hope by now we understand the difference between sex and gender, right? And so now I want us to do one other activity before we go back to our ideal selves. So I have here a young man. I would like for you all to give him a name. Let me see who's the first person to type it in the chat section. That's the name that we're going to go with this young man here.
Someone says
All right.
David.
Well, John was the first one, so we're gonna go with his name as John. There was a man named John. All right. So the question I want us to ask, let me get my stuff ready here. Me textbooks. Right. So when we look at John now, the question I have to ask that I want for you to share with me, what are some of the things that society tells John, or the messages that John's community or in your community, what are some of the messages that is sent to John in order to act like a man, you should do this? What are some of the messages that you think would be shared out that he would get from your community? You can take the mic, you can put it in the chat.
You should get a job.
All right. Okay.
Like you say, work hard.
Mm-hmm. All right, anything else? What is he expected to do?
Cheryl says men should not cry.
Okay, don't cry. Mm-hmm. What else are some of the messages when the community says that John should act like a man? What are some of the things that he's expected to do?
Antoinette says build a house.
Okay. You can take the mic as well if you want.
Louis says don't be too sensitive.
All right, don't be too sensitive. You can be a little sensitive, but not too much. You all are mic shy tonight.
Donnie says respect women.
Okay. All right, to act like a man is to respect women.
Strive to be financially viable. Get married.
Get married. How is he encouraged to act? How does the community encourage him to act?
Not like a village ram.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
Someone says brave and strong.
That's what your community, that's the message that they tell him, to don't act like a village ram. Okay. To be brave.
Brave and strong.
Mm-hmm.
Keep away from bad company.
Okay. I think they come from a very good, an excellent community, excellent village. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stay away from bad
drugs.
Company.
Someone says he could be a village ram, just take care of his family.
Okay. Right, that's interesting stuff again coming out here. Anything else? What other messages you see here telling him? Okay, go ahead. Someone says
it is okay to drink and lime a lot.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Anything else? What are the other messages that you think when he's told act like a man? what are some of the expectations that the persons in the community have when they tell them to act like a man?
You must have swag.
Swag, right. Okay. So we have John here, and now we have this young lady. Let's give her a name as well. Let me see who's the first to give her a name. Either take the mic or chat. We'll see who has the first, who says the first suggestion. Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Lisa. So we're doing the same thing with Lisa. What messages does your community, the one you live in, send to Lisa when she is told to act like a woman?
Be independent.
Right? What else is shared? How is she, what is she expected to do? And I want you to think about your community.
She must be respectable.
Okay.
Children.
How is she encouraged to act?
Someone says, don't be frequent on the street.
Okay. Anyone else would like to take the mic? What are some of the messages when people say act like a woman? What are some of the messages that the community gives to her?
She must be quiet. Someone says, keep the house clean and take care of the children. Just cook. She must be able to cook. Someone says she must be modest.
Any other message? How else is she encouraged to act?
Someone says she must have good influence on other young girls. Be a role model. Do not take nonsense from anyone. As I see this comment.
Excuse me. How you doing, Sam?
It's actually question just now. All right. Anything else y'all can think of? What other messages does your community send to Lisa when they say act like a woman? Come on, Lisa, it's time to grow up and act like a woman.
Attend PTA meetings. Well educated.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they will tell Lisa as a girl to attend PTA meetings, but they must tell her that, you know, she must be well educated.
Wake up early.
Okay.
Someone says, don't be a gold digger. Strive for independence.
Okay, I'm gonna add that on top here by the independent. What's a gold digger, by the way? Just to be, I don't want to take it for granted. We have persons of all walks of life here. Anybody would like to explain what a gold digger is?
Someone says, don't depend on man for anything. Don't depend on a man for anything.
Right, everybody understands what a gold digger is, right?
Someone, two persons says that a girl, Lisa will be two.
I want one more.
Don't be a clothespin.
Okay. Don't be a clothespin.
Someone says be responsible.
I'm sure everybody knows what they mean by don't be a clothespin, right? All right.
So that's good to know.
All right. So Jesse wants from clarification from when you say don't take nonsense from anyone.
Yeah, I just want some clarification what exactly you mean by that. Don't take nonsense from anyone.
Yes,
Just to make that we are on the same page.
It means to stand up for your rights.
Okay.
Stand up for your rights. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, so I think that
Serving
is it.
Jesus.
Okay, all right. So let me include that. I'm gonna just, instead of typing all serve Jesus, let me just put that there. All right. Now, when we look at all of these characteristics here, all these things that are around him, we refer to these send to back, right? All these characteristics is what we call a gender box. Now, a gender box is how we expect people to act depending on what society's idea of what is considered masculine or feminine behavior. So in John's case, as a male, as a boy, these are the characteristics or the things that we find in a gender box for men, right? Similarly, we have the same type of situation happening for Lisa. We see her and all of these expectations around her, gender box. So let me start with Lisa. What is Lisa discouraged from being or doing? We already have some of these things here we ask in terms of what she should be. Some of the things that's in the gender box we ask that she's discouraged from becoming, right? Yeah, we've highlighted that she shouldn't be frequent on the street. She shouldn't be a clothespin. She shouldn't depend on men for anything. She shouldn't take nonsense from anyone. She shouldn't be a gold digger. So the question I want to ask, what happens if she does these things, if she engages in a behavior that doesn't fit inside this gender box? What happens to her? Let me hear from you. I want somebody to take the mic.
All right, I have the mic. Good evening, everyone. I think that if she doesn't conform to these expectations, she'll be ostracized by society.
Okay. You want to elaborate when they say ostracized by society? What what that looks like. So give me an example.
Well, she would be looked on, she would be scoffed at, you know, maybe even called names.
Okay.
You know, and not looked at as the ideal.
Okay.
You know. So that's my view.
All right. Anyone else? What would happen if Lisa were to be a gold digger? Or if she were to be a clothespin in your community? What do you think would happen? So what would happen if how she treated by her family, for example, or even her peers? How would they treat how would they treat her if she was not quiet, if she was not any of these characteristics that we have here inside of the gender box?
Good night. It depends on what her family is like or her peers are like. If she may be a product of her family, so it may just be a normal thing and she may just be in a clique of friends who may just be like that. So it depends. But if she comes from a family that is not inclined to be that way, then she may be labeled otherwise. Right? So it depends. It could go both ways.
Okay. So she's either labeled as normal or abnormal, depending on the family. Okay.
Yes, and the same applies to the friends.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, she could give a comment. Yeah.
Right. So I'm looking at a lot of the negative qualities in the gender box. And I could remember growing up, a lot of the negative qualities was seen as a curse, or how to put it, a lot of young ladies, a lot of women would have shunned away or hide in shame if they were known to fit into those negative qualities. But I don't know if you noticed, it's something that I've observed, especially with our pop culture that a lot of our young people are influenced by, or the hip hop culture that our young people are influenced by, that a lot of these negative qualities are now embraced and they are somewhat encouraged, or they are, how to put it, you take a negative and turn it into a positive. I remember there was a season where there were a lot of female rappers and female pop stars claiming and owning to be, if you excuse my language, to be a bad bitch, and encouraging a lot of our young ladies and women in our society to be, excuse my language again, to be a bad bitch. It is something to own and glorify.
Even the language that you use is interesting to note, because growing up, that wasn't seen as a negative term, but now they are saying that they are reclaiming the term and it's now seen as a term of endearment.
Yes, of empowerment.
So, of empowerment.
Where, how to put it, growing up, some men were seen as victorious or as having some sense of power or prowess when they have many women. Now we are seeing where some women are glorified or rated as having some sort of prowess or power when they have many men. I don't know if you all noticed that turnaround, but it was something I've noticed, and it is heavier in the last 5 to 10 years. Let's say like 10 years or so.
Okay, thank you very much for that contribution. So now let's see what happens here. So what happens when we talk about John now? So what are some of the characteristics that John is discouraged from acting as? So we have identified 1 or 2 here. He shouldn't be sensitive. He shouldn't act like a village ram. Do you think there are any others that you think, any other characteristics that they say is not a man? Check the chat. And what happens if he were to act in a way that is not within the gender box? If he were to disrespect women, what happens to him? And when we use terms like not brave, but he's shy, what are some of the reactions of the community? How is he viewed?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right. Well, one of the things that I realized lately is that the way society have it is that any young man or any man in the whole that treats his woman or treats his wife with respect and love and literally tries to protect them from anything, they are considered to be a simp. And the word simp is used to describe men that are soft, and that would society deem them soft, which is not so, but that is just one of the terms used to call men that are very protective and caring and loving.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that, because that was one of the things I wanted to highlight. Now, the thing is that when we do this activity, normally with young persons, all of these positive qualities that you all have highlighted, it's not really being pushed in the community. It's not really being pushed, it's rarely being pushed in the music, but especially among our young people, these qualities, they actually are outside of the gender box.
Yeah, actually, I agree with the young man that a lot of the positive qualities we see here, especially when a man cares for his woman and does right by her, he's being viewed as that term, simp. But if he acts selfish, if he acts aggressive about getting his own, about seeking his own desires, he is being taught as reclaiming his masculinity. That is what is being pushed right now. I don't know if you would have noticed, but that is what has been being pushed right now.
So when we talk about this concept of being financially viable, we also have this hustler mentality, right? Which is often connected to the idea of being aggressive. And now I want us to take note of these things and remember when we would have identified our characteristics of what the community's ideal man, if we look at some of these characteristics, you'd recognize that quite a lot of them fall within this gender box. The table, this idea of being popular, achievement, this good looking body. So even though I know in terms of your personal ideals, our ideals and the majority of your ideals would be shaped by your, well, fortunately for you, for your faith. I know some of you come from different family backgrounds, which we'll get into next. But for quite a lot of you, the communities that we come from, these are the general expectations of an ideal man. man of God is not one of them. That is outside or somewhere in between the line of the gender box, right? So just for our clarification, I don't remember what the first two parts of the word simp stand for. I only remember the last two. It's an acronym for something. What does it mean? All right. So anyone would like or my friend would like to explain what is simp? I only remember the last two parts of it was like stupefied or something.
I can't remember.
Yeah. So you could type it in the chat if you remember, please. But the idea behind it, if you feel uncomfortable with sharing it, is the simp is the man who, according to them, is bamboozled by the M and the P is for mediocre pussy. Excuse the language for those of you who are so sensitive to those things. Well, for me, I've become desensitized to that because once you're mentoring young people, you have to get accustomed to hearing it and then addressing it, right? So this idea of when we respect, if you engage in behavior that's outside of the gender box, the labeling for men in our era, we realize that it's changing. In the past, a man would be labeled as soft. What are some of these? If he behaved outside of the gender box, he'd be labeled as soft, or he'd be labeled as a pretty boy. In the past, that's what we returned. So what are some of the reactions to the community, or how would he be treated by, beyond having that label? How would his family or his peers treat him if he behaves in a way that's outside of the gender box? If he doesn't have swag, if he doesn't work hard, if he isn't aggressive, right? I want to hear from you. Let me hear some feedback, some comments, your thoughts, what's going through your head. Let me find out where you all are at right now before we move into our next presentation or activity for the night.
Suckers idolizing.
Right, thank you. Let me write that there before we forget. Ray, you would like to share something where you're at, what's going on?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Oh, I'm a bit kind of lost. I just got in.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So we're talking about the gender box and the expectations that we have of men. So here we have a picture of John, and in the blue box would be all of the different characteristics that his community would say that as a man, this is how you are expected to act. This is how you are expected to behave. And outside of the gender box, you see some of the characteristics that you would not really find is expected. We're talking about the community and the general society.
Yes.
Really expected of men. And so the question that I had asked when we came up with all of these different things is what happens to John if he behaves in a way outside of the gender box? And so we would have said that he would be labeled, and most of the times as he's labeled, he's soft, he's pretty, he's called a simp. But it's interesting to note that while he is labeled, look at what happens to Lisa if she behaves in a way outside of the gender box. Right? So I just wanted to get some feedback. What are your thoughts? What's going on in your head? Is everybody lost? We're pulling the things together just now, but we have to ensure that you understand the foundation. Remember, today we're talking about values, how you see yourself, how others view persons, and how this thing called gender really relates to me. So even from looking on at the gender box, you would recognize that the punishment that is meted out for Lisa, if she behaves in a manner outside of the gender box, oftentimes is a bit more harsh than the punishment that is meted out to John. John, he has to wear a label on his back. But her, we see that she becomes ostracized from society. So let me hear from some of your experiences. Do you know anyone who, either male or female, who has behaved or engaged in characteristics or ways outside of your community's gender box, outside of the norm? Do you all know anyone like that? And I want to hear some feedback, how they went about doing it. What was your community's reaction to them? And remember, this is a safe space, so what you share should remain confidential between us. All right, so let me pause the recording. Right. A stereotype is the idea or belief that all members of a certain group are very similar, leaving no room for individual differences. So when we would have identified our concepts of the ideal man or the ideal woman, are these considered stereotypes? Are they true for all men, all women? And the answer really is no, right? So now let me ask you a question. Now we can start back the discussion very briefly. What are some of the advantages or disadvantages for having these characteristics that are identified here? What are some of the man? We're gonna go with the top 5. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are some of the advantages for having money and wealth in the case of the man?
Makes you influential.
Okay. Influential, so that's an advantage. Let me put that in blue. Our advantages will go in green. Any disadvantages anyone can think of having money and wealth?
You can have arrogance coming out of that.
All right. Ideal man can bring something to the table. What is the advantage of that?
He can take care of his family.
Okay. Bringing something to the table. Any disadvantages of a man who can bring something to the table?
He might bring something inappropriate to the table.
Okay. It's inappropriate. I'm not sure I understand, but we don't have the time, so let's move along. All right. What about popularity? What is the advantage that a man would have if he is popular?
Well, he's well known.
Okay. And he could, sorry, you stopped?
Well known by the community.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, he will be able to interact and bring social status.
Okay.
To whoever it is, social status.
All right. So let me hear from somebody besides Sister Lauren. She's killing it tonight, knocking it out the park. Let me hear from somebody else now. What do you think? Is there any disadvantage to a man having popularity?
Attract many women.
That's a disadvantage. Is it
unwanted attention?
Okay, I have here unwanted attention. Anything happening in the chat?
Well, similar things.
Okay, popularity opens doors. Okay, that is a good word. That would fit in the line. All right, and the last one we're looking at, let me go here with a good looking body. What is an advantage? Is there any advantage that a good looking man would have as opposed to a man who's not good looking in society, in your community?
You'll be treated better, treated well.
Okay, good looking men are treated well. What about the disadvantage for good looking men? Is there any disadvantage for a good looking man?
Stereotyped.
Meaning what? What stereotype?
If he looks good, people tend to think, well, he's focused on his body. He's more about himself. Or, yeah.
All right. So let's do the same thing for our ladies now. What are the advantages to being a sexy woman in Trinbago? What are the advantages? What benefits will she face or experience from having a good shaped body? Anything happening in the chat? My chat guy here is having a whale of a time laughing. Our daughters here giving suggestions as well. All right, yes, let me hear from you.
Well, you'll get more attention.
And that's an advantage? Okay.
Yeah, it depends on how you look at it.
Okay. What's the disadvantage to having a sexy shape, a well-shaped body, well-proportioned, I imagine? All right, I'm hearing objectified.
As the young people say, she will GT.
She will GT, more attention. All right. GT. All right. So what about having good hair? Whatever good hair is. What are the advantages that she would have? Sister Allison, I have to take you back off the gag and allow you because the comments coming in slow. All right, so let me hear. Advantages to a woman having nice hair. Her hair is always well kept, well done. Or let me put it another way. What happens to the woman who doesn't have nice hair? The hair is never kept. It's never well kept. It's always messy.
The woman with the unkept hair is always frowned upon for not taking time out to, make herself look presentable. The one with the good hair, everybody wants to be around her. You always want to know, which hairdresser, which this, which that, and you can't just pass unnoticed. People always have to notice and many a time say something.
So she could earn more friends, all right? Or make some more sociable. Let me put that back. Right. So what about the benefits, any disadvantages from having well-kept hair, nice hair, whatever you want to call it? There's no disadvantage we could think of? All right.
Yes, the same thing about being vain,
All right, stereotype.
You can't manage your money. You're always doing your hair, or you always, so people would sometimes think that poor management, or
All right. So what about the advantages of a quiet woman?
She may be liked for always seeing as knowing her place, knowing when to hush, when to speak, and all of that.
Okay. So that's an advantage. Persons would like her. She knows when to speak, when on any disadvantage.
She could be seen as a wallflower. Just somebody just there to be taken advantage of.
Okay. All right. And the pretty woman. What are the advantages a beautiful, pretty woman has over somebody who is not seen as attractive or pretty in our community, our society? Come on, let's go quickly. If you have just two women going for a job interview, same qualifications, one is pretty. All right, Joel puts it in a nice way. She gains more leverage. Do you all agree? That in our society, the prettier woman get ahead. So my question is, so we looked at some of these characteristics and we said that these characteristics are not true for everyone. Yet, when we look at some of these things, which we call stereotypes, we see that there are some advantages, and very often the advantages might outweigh the disadvantages for continuing these stereotypes. Yeah? So where do you think these ideals about what a woman should look like and what a man should be like, where do you think these ideals come from?
From society?
Yes, society is one of them. But more, sorry, go ahead, I'm listening.
From our upbringing, how our parents would have brought us up.
That's correct as well. From our family history as well as our values. And that's where I want to stop for tonight because our time is up. And next week, when we continue, we're going to start there. So I want us over for our homework. You already have this idea of considering what the Bible recommends for LGBTQIA persons. But I want you to think about your family and think about the messages that you would have received from your family growing up. What messages did you learn about womanhood, about manhood from your mother, from your father? And I want you to just throw your mind back, think about these things, and come prepared to write in your journal next week when we begin. All right? Next week is going to be a little spicy as well. So please pray for us. And I want you as well to do a little research. All of you, I think, may be connected. You may or may not be connected with a particular faith-based organization or community-based organization. I want you to start examining and asking yourself, what do you see the role of men or the role of women in the home as? Because we remember we're going on a journey. Today we laid the foundation for understanding the differences between gender and sex. We would have looked at gender stereotypes and values, and we also would have identified the importance of even recognizing value and worth in ourselves and in others. All of these things, ultimately, when we realize that we put value of certain things over other things. So for example, when we looked at the stereotypes, you'd see that in society, we value beauty, attractiveness, much more than some of the other values, like being humble, being quiet, some of the more emotional or what we call soft skills. And very often these things are some of the things that can lead to violence and lead to gender-based discrimination.